Look, I'm a big PlayStation fan. I've owned all the consoles, and I primarily play on PlayStation 5 even to this day. I'm obsessed with trophy collections and playing all the latest games, but even I have to admit that PlayStation this generation has easily been the weakest identity wise I think I've ever seen it be in my entire life, and that's putting it lightly. When you think of the previous generation, Sony had all kinds of games that defined them. Infamous, Killzone, Sly Cooper, the older Final Fantasy games, even Twisted Metal and more. It seemed like every other month they had something weird and cool and unique coming out that would entice people to try something new. Even the PS4 had stuff like God of War and then some, and when you fast forward to the PS5, it's been probably the worst, I'm not gonna lie. Sony has an identity problem for sure, especially since they've been releasing all of their games on PC pretty much too, which may have made them money, but it's also making their console less of a reason to own one as well. Look at Nintendo, right? They have all kinds of games that define their console. The Switch 2 just came out, and even though it too launched with very little actual Switch 2 games at release, the point still remains that the Switch 2 has an identity that's uniquely its own, which is obviously Nintendo branded games. You think Nintendo or the Switch 2? You think Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Pikmin, and more. These games that are only available there. You can't play Mario on PC. Well, unless you're sailing the high seas, I mean, but that's besides the point. If you want to play games the legit way, then yeah, you would need to buy a Switch 2 to play Nintendo games. However, with PlayStation 5, that's not really the case anymore. Before, if you wanted God of War and then some, you would have to buy into their ecosystem. These days, you just wait a year, and then those games come to Steam anyways, which I guess is great if you're a PC gamer, but terrible if you're someone who's trying to justify why they need to keep a PlayStation at all these days. And before people crucify me, hear me out, okay? I think Sony should release some of their games on PC and other platforms. But the facts do remain that releasing everything that they have is not working for them, and that's just the reality of things. A good example recently is Stellar Blade. Although not owned by Sony or anything, they did help publish it, so they do make money off of its release on Steam. And this is a solid way for Sony to make money from games they're attached to without giving away their exclusive catalog that obviously defines them. Final Fantasy XVI is another great example. Sony helped finance that game, but they don't own it per se. Yet, they made money, obviously, by making it a console exclusive when it released, even though Square Enix did say that the game underperformed despite selling like 3 million copies in 3 days alone on the PS5, but that's more so because Square Enix, honestly, they have pretty insane demands when it comes to how their games perform. But anyways, just look at the Xbox as a good example as to why this is not really a good idea. The Xbox is pretty much the rock bottom of what ends up happening in the long run. You completely end up devaluing your entire console. And now, nobody needs to buy it, and PlayStation seems to be going down the same path somewhat too. But when you compare the PS5 to previous generations for their exclusive games, it's honestly pathetic. And then you start looking at how many live service games are either in development or have already been canceled. And then you wonder, what is Sony even doing anymore these days over there? And that big pivot that they've had to live service is a big reason why Sony is, in my opinion, driving their identity into the dirt for a while now, yet they're still committed. This is from Eurogamer. Sony remains committed to diverse and resilient live service games, including forthcoming marathon and fair games despite high-profile failures. Oh great, they want to make more of these live in our world games. Can't wait to not play those ones either. CEO Herman Hulst even said as seen here that he thinks games like Marathon even have a future, which dude, come on man, somebody tell this guy. That game has been mired in more controversy than most games that are properly out already. Marathon has had enough problems to sink bigger games, and it's not even out officially, and my worry is that Sony would rather focus on these live service games than what has defined them and made them profit in the past. You know, those things called single player games. You ever heard of those ones? This generation, honestly, has seen the least amount of new single player releases from Sony as a first party developer. You had Spider-Man and God of War, and I guess Horizon Forbidden West, which that game kind of sucks, but whatever, and some other ones too. It's not enough, is what I'm saying. And honestly, the fact that these live service games usually end up costing more than these single player ones, that disturbs me too. I would rather trade a Marathon in a heartbeat, dude, for like a new Infamous game, is what I'm saying. You know how badly I want a new Infamous game? But knowing current day Sucker Punch, they would probably just turn that new Infamous game into a talking down session with yet another diverse female protagonist again for like the 50th time. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Herman Hulst even said, and this is from Polygon, Marathon isn't going to be another Concord. Sony insists we're not going to make the same mistakes again. Oh, really? It's not going to be the same mistake, despite the fact it seems like you guys are indeed making the same mistakes. Here's what Herman Hulst said about Marathon not being Concord 2.0. I think some really good work actually went into that title. Some really big effort, Herman said of Concord, but ultimately that title entered into a hyper-competitive segment of the market. I think it was insufficiently differentiated to be able to resonate with players, and so we have reviewed our processes in light of this to deeply understand how and why that title failed to meet expectations to ensure we're not going to make the same mistakes again. Oh my god, dude. He's learning the wrong lessons in real time again. Concord didn't work because it was DEI slop, Herman. Herman, are you listening? Do they have you under mind control over there? What are you talking about, man? There's no reality where Concord would have been a smash hit. Everyone in that game looked like they were AI generated, and Marathon looks about the same too. It's another genderless slop multiplayer game. Did someone kidnap the real Herman and like replace him with a synthetic clone or something? What is happening right now? Look, I wish I could barrel roll into Sony's HQ without getting shot in the head and tell them to not make any more live service games myself, because they really think that they're just gonna replicate Helldivers 2, not realizing that Helldivers worked because it wasn't PvP based, it was PvE based in the first place. You can't 1v1 someone in Helldivers 2 to level up. I mean, you can shoot each other, but like it's not really recommended, obviously, because the main enemy is, of course, the NPCs that are running around. And Marathon is what if Helldivers 2 was PvP? And also first person, but also you shoot real people and they can shoot you, and then if you die, they take all of your loot. Great. That doesn't sound fun at all. You see, the problem is they keep trying to replicate this one game's success, not realizing why people enjoyed Helldivers to begin with. It's fun because it's co-op. You're not fighting some like sweaty kid that's in his bedroom sniping you from 500 feet away while he's behind cover while drinking like gamer subs or G Fuel or something. I can't even speak anymore. My god. You're just fighting robots and aliens. A big reason why Destiny 2 was so successful for so long was because of its PvE content, just like Helldivers. Sure, it has PvP, but anyone who's played PvP in Destiny 2 can tell you that it's, first of all, just cancerous and awful and horribly balanced, but also that the PvE player base completely dwarfs the PvP player base by a super large margin. Why do you think Bungie focuses primarily on the PvE side of Destiny and not its PvP? Because it's not why people play that game. But in their infinite wisdom, Bungie went, why don't we take the part of Destiny 2 people play the least and then turn that into a whole game with Marathon? These people, dude, what is happening? Like, here's another article saying the same thing. Don't worry, guys, Marathon won't be another Concord. The fact you even need to assure people that it won't be another Concord is proof that it probably will in fact be another Concord. There's also this handy graphic to show some of the live service games that Sony has, and oh my god, Fair Games, I forgot that game even existed. Yeah, that's going to flop, or probably not even come out. But it gets stupider, okay? This is from Insider Gaming. PlayStation 6 is top of Sony's priorities right now, says Sony CEO. What do you mean that the PS6 is your top priority? My brother in Christ, the PS5 right now has no first-party games that are tied to the console only to justify people buying it besides Astrobot and like Demon Souls right now. Why do we need a PS6 anytime soon when the PS5 is perfectly fine? Am I crazy? Guys, help me out here. Is the PS5 not good enough for you already? I feel as if gaming companies have barely even scratched what the PS5 can even do yet. Why? Why do we need the next one already? Are we really going to end the PS5 generation with this mid-tier collection of games that are apparently first party? This is beyond stupid, dude. I'm so tired. I just wanted a new Infamous, but instead you're showing me Genderless clone people shooting each other in a Pixar map with Marathon instead. What is happening? And at this point, what the hell is even the point of PlayStation then? Because right now, between Xbox, PlayStation, and PC, the only difference, honestly, is who you're paying to play your games on at this point. At least Nintendo is the only one with the real identity. And it's kind of sad to see. Then you have Hideki Nishino. He's the CEO of Sony, by the way. He said that these are the priorities for PlayStation, which reads, the future of the platform is top of mind, and they're committed to exploring a new and enhanced way for players to engage with our content and services. Cool. How does this equate to cool new games exactly? Because all that sounds like to me is you want to find new ways so I can play the next Horizon slop, unlike my microwave or fridge, is what that sounds like to me. They also want to push cloud gaming, which, oh great, another service you'll have to pay for is what they want to get going now. Look, okay, I'll tell you what players want, alright? We just want a console that has exclusive games that they can't find anywhere else, that justifies them spending their money and keeping their engagement on that platform, PlayStation I mean. Secondly, what they want is a Steam Deck variant for PlayStation games. Yeah, you know how Valve is making that a big thing for them? And they even had Gabe Newell running around handing out Steam Decks to people when that thing launched. We want that, Sony. I don't want to stream my games. I want a device that has the games on it so I can play it and not worry about my internet connection crapping out while I'm in like a hotel room. Because the person in the room beside me is streaming his PORN in 4K Ultra HDR and it's eating up all the bandwidth. I just want to play games on the go without having to worry if I'm within the sphere of internet to allow that to happen. And I already know people will say, just use your phone data for the portal already. Just do that. Yeah, great alternative there. Let me drain my phone of all of its life so I can play games outside. Just give me a Steam Deck that plays PlayStation games, and let me play Infamous on the damn thing for God's sakes. Because I don't know about you guys, but I really don't care anymore about graphics. I don't care how high fidelity something looks. Oh wow, I can see the dimples on this guy's face or the pimples on this enemy's butt cheeks. Who cares anymore? We still got games coming out these days that run like swamp water like Mind's Eye, and games are still launching buggy as hell and full of glitches. Can we please stop focusing on these things that do not matter and fix the games instead and just make fun games that maybe don't cost this new $80 American at launch that also takes 5 years to make and you also need to buy $150 worth of microtransactions, or like the entire studio will implode overnight? I just want cool games that look good enough and run well. Why? Why is that so hard to give us? Sony wants their ecosystem to be this multi-generational platform. Cool, you already have that because people are playing the PS4 still as well as the PS5. Now just give us a handheld that doesn't explode when I turn it on, and then we're golden. Be more like Nintendo. That's pretty much this whole video, honestly. Not in prices. Oh god, no. Not in prices. Don't do that. I mean in terms of like exclusivity and such. Give people a reason to support your console, and trust me, that support will dwindle when your entire generation is nothing but canceled live service games like it is right now. We should be up to our tits in cool exclusives this gen already. Instead, we have Marathon coming. Cool. Can't wait to play that gray slop in a cup of a game. Even Forbes reported on this in its title. PlayStation has its head in the sand about its live service future. Pretty much Sony doesn't got a lot going on right now. In terms of what's really releasing soon, besides, okay, maybe Death Stranding 2, but besides that, you got what? Ghost of Yotei later this year, which I am not seeing any hype behind that game at all. And besides that, it's probably years till we see stuff like Wolverine or a Spider-Man 3. So what? All I got in the meantime is Marathon and fair games? Oh my god, what is happening to Sony? What is happening anymore? Look, I'll just say it plainly. PlayStation must abandon its live service future before it's too late. Their identity as a company is just becoming muddled. They're becoming interchangeable with their competitors. And honestly, as someone who games primarily on PlayStation, I'm seriously considering hopping over to Steam. Because why keep supporting PlayStation's ecosystem like this if it keeps going? Because they're not making the games that people like me want anymore. They're focusing on this stupid live service slop and all the political nonsense that has plagued other games like Spider-Man and more that also needs to end. Look, I know Sony is changing things behind the scenes. Okay, I know I did vids on that already where I talked to people at Sony about that, but the point still remains, which is that these changes need to happen sooner rather than later. I don't need the promise of goodwill. I need to see the action. I feel like I'm in like a jaded relationship right now. Is this how every woman feels when their boyfriend is being an idiot? Because this is frustrating as hell, I'm not gonna lie. But fine, okay? Credit where it's due. Sony has removed many of the restrictions recently on some of their more popular games on Steam, which is good of them to do. Helldivers 2 was getting cooked because it was banned in like a ton of countries to be bought. And the 4 games a part of this lifting of the region lock is Helldivers 2, God of War Ragnarok, Last of Us 2, and Spider-Man 2. Why were they region locked and unavailable to buy? I hear you not asking. Apparently, it was because the PlayStation Network sign-in was just not available in many of those countries. So for Helldivers 2 anyways, it was something like 177 countries just weren't able to play the game because PSN wasn't available. So let me get this right then. The reason why these 4 games weren't available in a ton of places was simply because Sony wanted these users to log into a PSN account. And this was just to boost their PSN account numbers. God damn it, Sony. Well, at least you removed most of it. Some of it is still there, I know. If you live in, like, I don't know, Antarctica, maybe you can't play these games still. But the majority of the world can now, at least. And some users think it's because Stellar Blade was a big success. I mean, maybe. But I think it has more to do with what Herman Hulse said, which is this. We're continuously exploring new ways for players to interact with their franchises. It's important to realize that we're really thoughtful about bringing our franchises off console to reach new audiences. And that we're taking a very measured, very deliberate approach in doing that. I'll translate that for you. They realized that they screwed up trying to force everybody to have PSN accounts and went, you know what, screw it. Just buy our games, give us money, you freaks, and wow, it's working. Nice job, Sony. Although, according to Herman in that same article, Sony is being very selective with which first-party single-player titles they want to bring to PC in the future. So here's my elevator pitch, Sony, okay? Keep your single-player games on PlayStation only. Give people a real reason to own your big stupid console that looks like a reverse Oreo cookie. But when you make your live service stuff that can, go multi-platform with that, because you obviously need as many people as possible to populate those worlds. But Spider-Man and stuff like that doesn't really need to be on Steam, because as we saw when Spider-Man 2 released, by the way, let me find that article real quick, which says that games like Spider-Man 2 were actually cracked open like a walnut just mere minutes after being released on PC. So case in point, the sad reality is that a lot of PC users are not actually buying PlayStation first-party single-player games when they release. They're just stealing them, basically. And the live service ones, they can't obviously, but mostly single-player-wise, you're just releasing the games that end up just defining your console outside of it for less money, and people are mostly just stealing it anyway, so what's the point? I know that's going to anger some people, look, I get it, but it's also why Nintendo obviously doesn't release their first-party games on PC either. Because if Mario Kart came to Steam, sure, it would probably make gangbusters, probably, because it has an online component, so I don't really know how they would steal it, but anyways. But let's be real, if they were to release like Zelda, that game and more would be cracked immediately, and they would suffer the same fate as Spider-Man 2. And look, sadly, we know it's true. It sucks, I know. I'm not trying to attack anybody, PC, whatever. I'm just saying it how it is. It's the unfortunate reality. But it is what it is. The point of this video is simple. Sony needs to rein themselves in and start realizing why their console should be important to their future. And the more they continue to give less reasons to own a PlayStation 5, the worse it will be in the future for the brand known as PlayStation. Just go look at Xbox right now. Nobody needs to buy an Xbox. Just play everything they have on Steam or PlayStation anyways. The point is that think of your console like a country. This will be a spicy comparison, but the more you give away that nation or your console's identity and just replace it or give it away at random, you end up diluting the identity of that, country or platform. Does that make sense to anybody? So Nintendo should probably be Nintendo because it's working for them. PC can be PC, and PlayStation should probably be itself too. Otherwise, in the future, it'll just be PC Nintendo, and that's pretty much it. Because why should PlayStation even exist if everything is on PC anyways? You get it? So in the end, Sony needs to stop being stupid and tighten up their belief system. Outside of a very few examples that are doing well, the majority are clearly not. And it's just going to hurt them in the end as a brand. I'm not saying Sony shouldn't release anything on PC, they should. But maybe still try to justify why your console should be a place that people would want to invest to in the future as well. Otherwise, there's really no point in PlayStation as a console existing in the future. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.